Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Meanahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey peeps, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Word Domination and is from Uproarious Games. If you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. There will be a link up in the top corner of your screen as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Those links will take you to the page. You don't have to take my word for anything you see here. You can go to the page and find out for yourself, and hopefully you'll consider backing the project. Now, Word Domination, thematically, you and the other players, 2 to 4 players, are taking control of evil masterminds in training, or you want to make a name for yourself as a supervillain, essentially. And you want to do that by stealing priceless artifacts from around the world. It might be things like the crown jewels, like something small, or it might be a huge monument, like the geyser at Yellowstone Park, something like that, or the Eiffel Tower, for instance. But now, mechanically speaking, this is a word game where you're actually building words using these tiles that represent those artifacts, but also have letters. In fact, the first letter of each of these artifacts is the letter that you're trying to use to make these words. And you're trying to not only make the words, but trying to steal these tiles as well, representing stealing the artifacts. But that is easier said than done, of course. So let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game is played with a prototype version of the game. So what you see in this version may be different than what is in the final version. Just keep that in mind. And then we're going to come back. I'll give you my final thoughts. Word Domination is a competitive game for 2 to 4 players. The players are supervillain wannabes who are trying to steal precious artifacts from around the world. Artifacts in this case are represented by letter tiles, and in order to steal them, you'll need to string these letters into words. To set up, each player gets a set of cube markers in a color of their choice and a cheat sheet playmat that has the turn structure and a spot for the tile you draw each turn on one side, and a list of the super mega evil arsenal abilities on the other side. Next, you'll shuffle up all the letter tiles and either stack them face down near the board or leave them all in the box for players to randomly draw out of. Each player will take a tile and place it in front of them. Then you will construct a grid of tiles at random with the number of players determining how many tiles you use. The light blue tiles are the arsenal tiles I referred to earlier. Decide randomly who goes first. On your turn, there are 3 primary actions that you'll take: placing a tile, spelling a word, and then drawing a tile to replace the one that you placed. First, you'll take the letter tile from in front of you and place it anywhere along the edge of the grid. You must then spell a word, which must use the letter that you just placed, plus as many other letters from the rest of the grid as you want that are still available. The same word can't be used twice in the same game, and a word must be in the dictionary to be legal. Place one of your markers on every letter that you use in the word. This means that you are canvassing those artifacts in preparation for stealing them. If any other players already had their cubes on any of these letters, you remove them and replace them with your own. If you use the arsenal letters in your word, you can use their super mega evil arsenal abilities. These could be anything from allowing you to replace a tile on the board, reinforcing your canvas tiles with an extra token, or even letting you use the same letter tile twice in one turn. You can steal a letter tile by using a letter that already has one of your markers on it. You can even do it multiple times in the same turn. When you steal, physically remove the tile from the grid and place it in front of you, and then replace it in the grid with a random drawn tile that you place face down, so that stolen is showing. Then, replace your token on this tile, which will matter for scoring at the end. From now on, the letter that you stole cannot be used by any other player, but you can continue to use it each turn. In fact, if the letter you stole was one of the arsenal tiles, you can use its ability over and over. It is possible to help out another player on their turn, if you have a good word in mind. If this happens, interrupt the player and give them 3 specific hints about the word: the number of letters, how many letters the acting player can steal by using it, and which letter in the word you would like as payment. Then, the active player can accept or reject your offer. If rejected, they complete their turn as normal. If accepted, you tell that active player what word it is, and they must spell the word by placing their tokens on the letters and stealing as usual, except for the letter that you asked for in payment. You get to put your token on that letter. If you're stuck and can't spell a word and either no one offered to help you or you rejected their offers, the other players are allowed to hurry you along, at which point you have only 60 seconds to spell a word or accept an offer, or else you get skipped, and you're only allowed to discard and redraw a tile before it goes on to the next player. Speaking of that, that is the last thing that you always do on your turn. Draw a new tile before the next player takes their turn. This is how the game will go, around and around, putting out tiles, canvassing, stealing, etc. After the 6th round, the game ends and you count up infamy points. Every stolen letter indicated by one of your tokens is worth 1 point. Any adjacent groups of 3 or more letters that are strictly under your control and not counting diagonals will make each tile count as 2 points instead. Unclaimed letters are worth nothing to anyone, however, they can act as bridges for connecting together your groups of 3 or more. Whoever ends up with the most points is the winner. So word domination is interesting for a number of reasons, and we start off with the theme. And really what's interesting about the theme of this is that there is one for starters, because most word games that you see, or just any kind of or word games would fall into the abstract category and not even really bother with the theme. But not only did word domination say, no, we want there to be something for the players to latch onto here that you're actually doing something, but they actually did it in a very creative way. So it's not just that hey, these tiles represent artifacts, but the first letter represents the actual real life whatever it is, and that probably took a lot of work to actually come up with something for every one of the letters. So that's very interesting, and it comes out with the artwork of the game, and for both of those reasons, actually, as it's indicated on the Kickstarter page, this is like a spiritual successor in a way to Paperback, which is a game that I've enjoyed from a few years ago. That's a deck building word game, but they use the same artist, and so you can definitely get that vibe right away. But also the fact that there is this injection of theme into it, which makes sense in a very creative way. Now, on top of that, what's interesting about word domination is that it helps if you have a good vocabulary. So if you've got a lot of words spinning around in your head, it's going to be an easier game for you, but that's not enough. It's not enough for you to have a good vocabulary. You also need to take into account the spatial element of the game, which is that you're trying to maximize your points. So on top of this being a word game, it's a point efficiency game. So how are you going to do that? Are you just going to go for biggest word as possible? Doesn't matter where the letters are, get them all over the place. Well, okay, you can do that, but you definitely want to maximize your letter count, because the more of your markers that are out there, the more likely it is you'll be able to steal a tile the next time your turn comes around, and you can steal. You make a word. But if they're all spread out, that means the chances of you being able to get the tiles that are adjacent to each other for scoring at the end is going to be more difficult, especially if other players, through the tiles that they stole, are going to make that more difficult for you. You also need to take into account the special arsenal tiles for the I'm not going to say this right, but the supervillain mega arsenal tiles, which give you those special abilities, which are very, very powerful, especially if you can steal one of those and therefore have access to it yourself. But even just being able to use it while it's still out on the grid is powerful enough in and of itself, but it's going to limit you. So how much are you willing to bend and shape a word just to be able to use those tiles? Well, if you don't, someone else probably will. So that's a thing you need to keep in mind. So it's not enough for you to just say, I've got all these great words I can make out here. Yeah, but what letters are you going to have to use for it? And are you avoiding these letters by doing so? Especially since you can only use every letter once. So, a very interesting element there. The fact that you're adding a tile yourself every round is giving, and depending on where you place it, is going to be huge, because that can also influence the scoring at the end of where you place the tile, hoping that you can steal it next turn, or steal one next to it, so on and so forth. There's just a lot of different decisions to make in the game, and then it gets down to that final scoring, and you just hope that throughout the course you were able to really plan ahead to get as many points as you possibly can. There's also an interesting element of being able to help, quote unquote, another player by saying, oh, I know a perfect word that you can make out there. But are you willing to accept my help, knowing that you're going to have to give me a tile afterwards? that is very critical in the game, because you're going to have to make a choice like that many times throughout the game, potentially, and then it's like, well, what am I willing to sacrifice to another player, which might put them ahead in order to get ahead for myself right now. So lots of different decisions in the game, despite the fact, by the way, that it's an easy game to learn. Very, very easy game to learn, very fast to play, and works at any of the 3-player counts. So even despite all those things, there's still lots going on in it, if that makes any sense. So if you like word games, but you like word games that are a little meatier, that have something else going on as far as especially the theme goes, and if you liked paperback, then definitely check out Word Domination from Uproarious Games. It is on Kickstarter right now. You can follow the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as in the description section underneath this video. Go to the page, find out more information, hopefully consider backing the project. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting our sponsors. Take care. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.